Hello and a very warm welcome to Money Control. Just a few days ago, something very surprising happened. Twitter decided to drop its iconic Bluebird logo. And of course, it's not only led to the Twitterati expressing a lot of disappointment, it's led to a lot of confusion about what exactly is Mr. Musk thinking. Number of reasons have been listed. Mr. Elon Musk tweeted saying that the X, which is what has been replaced, which is what has replaced the Bluebird, represents something bigger for Twitter. Twitter is going to become a global town square. What's also being discussed is that Elon Musk has an affinity to the alphabet X. But what's led to a lot of confusion, and in fact, it's completely bewildered many of us, is what is Mr. Musk thinking and the impact of this logo change on Twitter that has become almost a part of our daily lives. To discuss this in greater detail, I have with me Mr. Santosh Desai, Managing Director and CEO of Future Brands, and Mr. Harish Bijur, Brand and Business Strategy Specialist. Thank you so much for joining us. Who better than the two of you to really understand what's going on with Twitter over there? It's the whole move, the change of the logo led to a slew of articles, a slew of people expressing their comments on, what they think about the new logo, which is X, which is completely in contrast to the lovely blue bird. And I think the logo transcended a lot of what Twitter really stood for. Right? It was this bird, the language of Twitter, tweeting, all of that is going to go through a sea change. Let me start with you, Santosh, first. What's your sense? What is Mr. Musk thinking, and what do you think of the new logo?
Well, my sense is that there is not much sense that I can make of this because, it's difficult to fathom what's at work here. I mean, you have a loved and very well recognized brand with a very powerful symbol. You have a word that has, become part of our English language. We tweet and that loved brand like this, and to replace it with something that is generic, that is absolutely devoid of any emotional sort of any sense of an emotional charge at all. I think it's really, and also, if you were going to make a change, the change should be representing something larger. Had the ambition to be a super app is great, but the problem is that there is no sign of that anything at all right now. So you have Twitter exactly pretty much as it was, and with a completely new name that makes no sense, and no
Mhm.
sense of what is going to come in the future. So this feels like the personal vanity project of a very rich man, rather than a thought through marketing decision. So I mean, it is actually baffling. I mean, it is not very clear at all as to what he's up to.
Right. Harish, let me go across to you. So, personal vanity project of a very rich man. He is one of the richest in the world, and one would think that he's probably thought this through. There is maybe a larger game plan here that we are not understanding. We are, of course, we are nowhere close to what who or what Elon Musk is. So, how are you reading into this change? And do you? I mean, are you as baffled as all of us?
Yeah, I'm definitely as baffled as Santosh is, because I'd agree with the language that he uses, in terms of why this change. Yes, there is a super app, and that super app is meant to be X, and for a super app, it works beautifully. But Twitter is not a part of that super app as yet because nobody knows what the super app is all about. So, from a pure Twitter point of view, I would say that it's a bird hit, if I am to use aviation terminology. In fact, it's a bird miss, if I must say so. Because at the end of the day, this delightful blue bird, in relief, bought off public domain apparently for 15 US dollars. Today, possibly representing, I don't know how many $1 million, but maybe well nigh nearly $1 billion. And all of a sudden, the bird is killed, the bird is decimated, and in comes the symbol X. So I think it's rather hasty, but everything that I've seen going on as far as Twitter is concerned has been rather hasty. Extremely important to understand that there is something called social commerce, and then there's something called social media. You
Mhm.
cannot transition a social commerce logo onto a social media, kind of an animal. And I think that's what's being attempted here. And I suspect it's quite a failure.
So you're calling it a failure already. What impact do we see on Twitter? Do you think the users of Twitter or the advertisers, we're already seeing revenues for Twitter falling. Do you think the users will not take to this kindly? And could this be the beginning of the fall of Twitter and maybe something else will come up? Santosh.
Well, I think some would argue that the beginning of the fall of Twitter had already begun. I mean, the fact is that Mr. Musk has come and changed so many things already, and again, none of his initiatives seem to be working. The whole subscription sort of thrust has ended up with the least sort of in a sense are people who are able to buy their way into getting noticed, and the fact that you've made those tweets, actually you've circulated them more just because you paid money, is the opposite of the idea of free speech, which is what he claims to uphold. So I mean,
Right.
arguably the decline has already begun, but I don't think this step by itself, it's not as if people are going to turn off Twitter saying I don't like the name. I mean, that's unlikely to happen. But I think what it does is that brands get damaged over a period of time, and levels of engagement can fall. So I think it is hastening a process that has already begun. And in the absence of any new vision to replace the old, so you are dismantling something that existed, but
Yeah.
as of now, you have replaced it with nothing else. And till such time, and presumably there is an attempt to do so, there will be an attempt to do so, but till such time as we see any evidence of that attempt, we have to say that all you are doing is it's actually a gambler going deeper and deeper and making bigger and bigger bets to recover what has been lost so far. I mean, that's how it appears as of now.
Do you sense do you sense this desperation in Elon Musk, Harish, on just trying to make it work, because he has been tampering with something that was working absolutely fine, and like Santosh just pointed out, the fall began some time ago. Could this be the final draw for Twitter?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's a final draw because, again, I go back to Shakespeare saying, much ado about nothing, what's in a name? Because at the end of the day, you can run Twitter with any name, leave alone a symbol. But the point is that, X itself is a bit of a force fit onto Twitter. It is a force fit because, all of a sudden you have the corporate purpose of being behind a super app, and that super app is going to be X. And you want to push X down everybody's throat. You want to push X down every enterprise that you have under you. So it is like taking a corporate brand and actually shoving down very, very non-corporate brand names. Twitter is meant to be much softer than a super app is meant to be. So that, and secondly, X, the negativity of X is what worries me. Okay, I know we live in an edgy, buzzy generation where negativity is appreciated. The alpha gen is all about that negativity, maybe even. But X, one X is negative. It's the opposite of a tick. So it's like Twitter verified has a tick mark, and this is
Right.
an X. So X to the power of a tick, maybe. Two X's are sealed with two X's, a letter that you write, possibly a kiss. And three X's, many of us are familiar what they represent. So I don't think it's a great way of taking a social media vehicle and rebranding it with an X.
So apparently, he conducted a poll, and he did go out and ask a lot of people about what the new logo should look like. But then he did not go with any of the options that were suggested. And globally, what is being said is that this could actually, more than any other competitor, this Mr. Musk and Mr. Musk, whatever he's doing with Twitter, including this X, could actually kill Twitter. I just want to quote the CEO here, who herself said when she tweeted that it's exceptionally rare to have a second chance to make another impression. Has Twitter Will Twitter continue to be as relevant as it was, say, now, say a year ago or 2 years ago, or do you see some of that brand equity fading away with time?
No, I do see it fading away actually, and I think that like I said, when you have somebody coming in and changing the essential, there was a certain grammar to Twitter. There was a certain sense of familiarity people had. When you come and start changing with the essential algorithm that underpins the app, I think
Mhm.
you start taking big chances, and I think that's what Elon Musk has done. I mean, and the fact that take the tick mark, sort of the whole the brouhaha over it. The fact that you had tick marks, there were some people who were actually earners. They were drivers of traffic to the site.
Absolutely.
Elsewhere, right now he's paying. He started paying creators. So you had these creators on the site who had huge audiences. You, in one fell swoop, you decided to divest them of their status symbol or the mark that they got as a result of being creators. That was the only reward they were getting, and you
Mhm.
divested it, them of it, and now you've given that mark to people who are strugglers and losers for most part,
Yeah.
and then you've given them pride of place. I mean, the essential logic of any social media site is you don't mess with your creators. You don't mess with people who actually drive audiences to you,
Mhm.
and that's what he has done. So which
Mhm.
and to my mind, therefore, and that's why about half the advertisers are off the site. So he
Yes.
has come in, and let me be clear. No, to just say one thing, he did not, take over the site when it was in good shape. The problem was that he overpaid for the site because of his ego.
Mhm.
The site was anyway not making money, and now it has the additional sort of a disadvantage of paying off the debt that he has incurred in buying the site for an extravagant price.
Right.
He is now making bigger and bigger. So what he has done is to push the site instead of actually it getting revived in some form. In an attempt to revive it, he has actually done the opposite, and so
Mhm.
far with no sign of any upswing at all.
Right. Harish, name changes have been fairly commonplace. We saw Facebook changing its name to Meta in 2021, and Google adopted the moniker Alphabet, but they did not change the name of their services. Is this the first company globally that has done something so audacious as
Well,
what it has done?
audacious is possibly a word which is very, very closely associated with Mr. Elon Musk, and therefore expected to be very, very audacious. But audacious possibly does not create businesses. And I think, to that extent, yes, this name change is a dramatic one, it's a very big one, and it's a bit of a force fit, but it needs to be related to numbers. And there are just two numbers that I'm looking at. One is $15, which is all about possibly what Twitter paid when it got that Twitter bird in relief. The second is 44 billion US dollars, and that number, all of us know what it is all about. These two numbers are a bit of a clash. Revenues are down. Total number of users of Twitter totally down. We are talking 220 million at this point of time, a fall from a very large base which used to be there. And Santosh has already spoken about the fact that people who are creators, the creator economy has been disturbed. So
Right.
there seems to be a lot of disturbance. So the idea seems to be create disturbance, do an Amrit Manthan, and from that
Mhm.
Amrit Manthan, something will emerge. I don't know
Mhm.
what that something is going to be, but we are all going to wait and watch.
Okay, I want you both to, weigh in on, if something like this has happened in the past, what are the consequences of something like this? It can go right, it can go wrong. For instance, what we've picked up is that even Air India is planning on dropping the Maharaja logo and replacing it with something else. So I'm sure it's worked out well for some companies. It hasn't worked out well for some companies. Can you give us some background on this? Santosh, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah. No, so let me, this is a great example. Now, if, for instance, Air India decides to drop the mascot, if it decides to go ahead with that, you can understand why. The Maharaja is a mascot and a sign of the idea of royalty and a time when flying was all about royalty, but it is woefully out of touch in a much more democratized world of flying. It
Sure.
seems to represent India in its old, as you remember, it's the India of palaces and grandeur, whereas today's India has very, very different kinds of images associated with it.
Mhm.
And therefore, the idea of if Air India was to contemplate dropping the Maharaja, whatever its other advantages or disadvantages, the fact is that you can understand why they would do something like that. There is
Mm-hmm.
a cultural context to it. There is an economic logic to it. If Air India, particularly as it has changed hands, wants to also signify that it is not the Air India that you knew, which was part of this faded glory of of the once grandeur of Air India, but it's something young, dynamic, vibrant, customer facing organization. Then there is a logic, and I think that's when these kind of identity changes succeed when they are linked to a logic that
Mm-hmm.
consumers understand. Elon Musk does not own Twitter. Consumers own Twitter. So if consumers understand, its users understand why a name change, what does it represent, then I think
Yes.
it gets accepted. So if an Air India drops a Bharata, it will be accepted much more easily
Mm-hmm.
than the case it is in the case of Elon Musk.
Harish?
Well, different strokes for different folks and for different types of companies. Definitely for Air India, I think the imperatives are going to be different. Maybe the Maharaja's clothes are in tatters, quite like some of the seats of some of the aircraft, possibly some of us have flown upon. If you really look at it, maybe it's time to change. But then, I hope there's enough research that is done before you take action of this kind. Give you a quick example. I mean, LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India, at a point of time when all the big insurance corporations were coming into India, called in people to check, must we change our logo? And at that point of time, I still remember saying, please don't change. Because for a company like Life Insurance Corporation, an old logo means trust. And a new puppy dog, which yet another insurance company was actually having on its hoardings, meant nothing. At the same time, in the aviation field, again, there was Indian Airlines, and it became Indian, and it was celebrating 50 years. And on its tail, it had painted 15 large letters. I think that was very wrong, because when you use a number like 50 years on the tail of an airplane, people get worried. It's a question of using the right things, different strokes for different folks. And I think Air India will choose wisely, hopefully, with an eminent degree of research.
So, any iconic logos that come to your mind that you think have really worked for businesses globally and domestically? I love the Amul logo. The Amul.
Look, the Apple logo is iconic. I mean, and it has, there's a whole lot of symbolism attached to it. It is instantly recognized. It travels very well, although it was not, necessarily, designed for the mobile phone. It travels beautifully to the mobile phone. It has
Mm,
applications. So, I mean, you sum up the essence of the brand in that logo, beautifully. So
mhm.
I think strong logos and there's so many strong logos that you've seen through time immemorial. I mean, but strong logos have that quality of bringing alive, encapsulating what the brand represents,
Mhm.
and staying ever fresh.
So, Harish, would you like to add to that?
Well, I would say my favorite one is the Nike swoosh. And if you really look at
Yeah,
it, I think it's just a symbol, says it all. Slap it on anything, and it
absolutely.
looks great. Okay, and you add items to it. Just do it was one, and you could add on a lot. So that's very very symbolic. When I come back to Mr. Mas,
What is it about the Nike logo that stands out for you?
you
As in,
know,
why is it?
you know,
That's as somebody who loves the brand also. I've always thought about what is it so unique about that swish that makes people identify with it and has made it into an aspirational brand as well.
two things for me. One, it's motion, okay, and it's motion, and it just is a way of going forward. And I think it is a part of a wing. At the end of the day, it's one wing of a bird. Now that we're talking Twitter, it's got plenty in it. So coming back to Twitter, I would ask Mr. Musk, dear Elon Musk, did you actually try mixing a bird logo with an X? Because today we live in an age of high falutin design. The two could mix beautifully. And if you looked at a logo, you could say, hey, that is an X. And at the same time, you could say, hey, that is a bird in an X. So I think, enough wasn't done on that.
Mm-hmm. One wonders what will happen to the Twitter language, right? Like tweets, Twitter spaces. What are we going to say? X spaces? Any
Yeah.
guesses? What
No, I
happens to
don't.
the
I shudder to think actually because if instead of saying I tweeted you, you say I X'd you. It sounds
yeah,
vaguely pornographic.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't sound particularly nice. I the last thing you want to do is to X somebody. So I don't know. I mean, I honestly, again, you have because it is such an important part of our lives. We have, we kind of used it in so many ways, and to now have to change all of this with something like X, I think is going to create, I, that's the reason why I think we keep saying that it is so baffling, I guess, is the fact that, for an asset to have so many dimensions to it,
right.
yeah, it's actually not that common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, brands change logos all the time. Who cares whether company name says? For instance, nobody really cared if Facebook decided that it would also be called Meta Google said its alphabet, as long
Yeah,
as the service name was not changed.
sure. Yeah.
We sure call yourself Meta if you like, but
Mm-hmm.
it was linked to the fact that they had a huge investment in the metaverse. So there was a reason that we could see as to
Mm-hmm.
why Facebook was doing what it did.
Mm-hmm.
Here, that's the reason why perhaps we are, because you are letting go of so many assets, and for what?
Hmm. Harish, your thoughts in on this?
Well,
On
I'm
new
I'm
language for
equally
Twitter?
I'm equally hunting for the method in the madness. There's a lot of madness. I'm looking for the method because again, coming back in sum, 1x is a negative, not great. 2x a kiss, okay. 3x pornography. 4x the world's favorite bad word. So if you really ask me, can a lot happen over X? Maybe. Only time shall tell.
Okay, all right. My colleague has sent a message saying that tweeting could also be now known as expressing with an X. So
Nice, very nice, creative.
yeah, yeah. So we put out Himanshu's suggestion also on the show. Well, thank you so much for this
Right.
conversation. I think it was fun. We'll just see what happens on Twitter. Of course, the show will be available on Twitter and YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll of course wait and see what Mr. Musk does next. Thanks so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.